We've become experts at pretending that everything is fine, even when our hearts are shattering into pieces we can barely gather. Somewhere along the way, we learned to put on a brave face, to smile through the ache, and to tell the world, I'm okay, when we are anything but. Isn't it easier to fake a little strength than to explain why we feel empty? Easier to post the highlight reel than to admit that we cried before we left the house. We've been trained to believe that pretending is strength, that silence is composure, that pretending we're fine keeps us from falling apart. But the truth is, pretending doesn't heal you, it hides you. It builds walls around your pain so thick that even love can't reach through them. We wake up, put on our I'm fine outfit, and step into a world that rewards performance over authenticity. We're praised for our resilience, but rarely asked about our wounds. People see the smile and call it strength, but they don't see the exhaustion behind the eyes. We tell ourselves that it's better this way, that if people knew how much we were hurting, they'd either pity us or pull away. So we build a version of ourselves that can survive the day, but that version of us is tired. That version of us is screaming for air beneath the weight of pretending. The mask we wear might protect us from questions we don't want to answer, but it also blocks the very healing we need. When you keep saying, I'm fine, long enough, your heart starts to believe that silence is safer than honesty. You stop reaching for help. You stop showing emotion. You start performing your own peace instead of pursuing real healing. And before you know it, you've become a stranger to your own soul, so used to acting like you're strong that you've forgotten what it feels like to be seen in your weakness. But pretending doesn't erase the pain. It delays the healing. Every smile that covers up a tear, every laugh that hides a scream, every I'm good that replaces I'm hurting becomes another brick in the wall between who you are and who you're trying to be. We were never created to carry pain in silence. We were never meant to hide the cracks that make us human. Pain is not a performance to be polished. It's a process to be walked through. And when we hide it, we rob ourselves of the chance to be comforted. Somewhere deep down, we all crave to be seen, not the filtered version, not the strong version, but the real one, the one that's tired, the one that doubts, the one that wonders if it will ever get better. But we're afraid that if we let that version out, the world will turn away. So we hide our pain in productivity. We bury our sadness under accomplishments. We say yes to everything just to avoid sitting alone with what's broken inside us. But you can't heal what you keep pretending doesn't hurt. You can't fix what you refuse to face. And maybe, just maybe, the reason you feel so heavy isn't because life is too hard, but because you're carrying too many layers of I'm okay on top of your truth. Every time you pretend, you silence the voice inside that's begging for release. Every time you say, I'm fine, when you're not, you teach your soul to shrink. You teach yourself that honesty is dangerous. But honesty is the beginning of healing. When you finally let the truth breathe, even if it's messy, even if it's painful, you create space for freedom to find you. The mask might make you look composed, but it keeps you lonely because no one can love the real you if you never let them see it. And the longer you pretend, the more distant you become, not just from people, but from your own self. You start to forget what your real laughter sounds like, what genuine peace feels like, what authentic joy tastes like. You start to lose your reflection in the mirror because you've been performing for so long that you don't even recognize who's looking back at you. There comes a point when pretending becomes too heavy to carry. When the cost of appearing strong outweighs the comfort of being real, when you realize that pretending isn't protecting you, it's imprisoning you. You might fool the world, but you can't fool your soul. Deep inside, your spirit knows when it's suffocating under the weight of false strength. It knows when it's time to stop performing and start healing. Because the truth doesn't destroy you, it frees you. But we've become addicted to survival. We're afraid that if we let the mask fall, everything will crumble. Yet, what if the breaking is the blessing? What if letting yourself be seen in your weakness is the very thing that allows your soul to exhale for the first time in years? What if the world doesn't need your perfection? It needs your truth. What if the people who are meant to walk with you can only find you once you stop pretending? We've all been there, smiling through heartbreak, pretending through pain, acting strong when our hearts were barely beating. But no amount of pretending can substitute for peace. Peace doesn't come from appearance. It comes from honesty. You don't heal by hiding. You heal by revealing. Pretending may keep you safe from questions, but it also keeps you separated from healing hands that could hold you through your pain. The truth is, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to admit that you're struggling. It's okay to say, I need help, or I'm tired, or I don't know what to do next. The moment you stop pretending, you start healing. The moment you drop the mask, you start breathing again. And maybe, just maybe, that's where freedom begins. Not in pretending to be okay, but in finally giving yourself permission to be real. You don't have to have it all together before you come to God. You don't have to dress up your pain, hide your doubts, or rehearse the right words before you speak. You don't need to fix yourself before you step into His presence. He's not waiting for your perfection. He's waiting for your honesty. Somewhere along the way, we started believing that we had to come before God as our best selves, smiling, composed, pretending that faith means never feeling weak. We thought that if we showed our brokenness, He would turn away, that if we brought our mess, He'd be disappointed. But what if He never asked you to be perfect? What if all He ever wanted was your presence? There's this quiet pressure we carry to be okay, to stay positive, to keep believing, even when our hearts are tired of hoping. We say prayers with shaky hands, whispering words we barely believe, and think He won't hear us unless we sound strong. But strength doesn't move God, sincerity does. When you come to Him raw, when your words are messy, when your tears are the only prayer you have left, He listens because He sees the heart beneath the chaos. He sees the exhaustion behind the smile, the fear behind the silence, the pain behind the praise. You don't need to perform for Him. You just need to show up. We've been conditioned to impress people, to prove that we're faithful enough, strong enough, holy enough. But God isn't a crowd waiting to be impressed. He's a Father waiting to be trusted. He doesn't need your performance. He desires your presence. He can handle your anger, your confusion, your disappointment. He can handle the nights you can't pray because the pain feels louder than your words. You don't have to hide that from Him. He already knows. He saw the moment you broke and the tears you tried to swallow before anyone else noticed. You don't have to hide the pieces. He's not afraid of your brokenness. You think you have to clean yourself up before He comes close, but He's never been afraid of the dirt. He meets you right in the middle of it, You think your flaws disqualify you, but they're the very reason He reaches for you. He doesn't require perfection to pour His love. He only requires permission. You don't need to fix your life before you let Him in. You just have to open the door, because He can't bless the version of you that you pretend to be. He can only heal the version of you that's real. We spend so much energy trying to be worthy of His attention, forgetting that His love never depended on our worthiness. You can't earn His grace by doing everything right. Grace isn't a reward for the flawless. It's a refuge for the fallen. It's not about being good enough. It's about being honest enough to say, I need you, when you finally stop performing. When you let down the walls and come as you are, weary, doubting, broken, that's when He meets you with the kind of love that doesn't flinch at your flaws. There's a strange peace that comes when you realize you don't have to pretend anymore. You don't have to hold it all together in front of the one who already knows you inside out. You don't have to filter your emotions or suppress your pain. You can fall apart in His presence and still be held. You can admit that you're scared and still be loved. You can confess that you're lost and still be led. He's not intimidated by your humanity. He created it. He's not shocked by your weakness. He designed you with limits so that you'd know how to lean on His strength. Some people think faith means never questioning God, never doubting, never falling apart. But real faith is the courage to show up anyway. It's walking into His presence when your heart is heavy and your words are few. It's knowing that even when you can't see the way forward, You can still sit in his presence and trust that he's near. Faith isn't about pretending the pain doesn't exist. It's about believing that you're not alone in it. There are moments when all you can do is breathe. And even that feels like a struggle. In those moments, he's not asking you for polished prayers. He's not asking you to quote verses or sound strong. He's whispering, oh, just come. Come as you are. Tired, angry, confused, afraid. Come with your messy emotions and your unanswered questions. Come with your doubt and your despair. He can handle it. You don't need to be perfect to be in his presence. You just need to be real. Because his love isn't conditional. It doesn't waver when you're weak. It doesn't disappear when you doubt. His love is steady, patient, and fierce. It reaches into the very places you've been trying to hide. Maybe that's what grace really is. The invitation to stop pretending and simply be present, to stop striving and start resting, to stop performing for love and start receiving it. You don't have to wear strength like armor in front of him. You don't have to have the right words, the right attitude, or the right timing. You just have to come. You just have to be. You just have to let him see the real you. The one who's been holding it together for too long. The one who's tired of being strong. The one who just needs to be seen, heard, and held. Because when you finally stop trying to be perfect, that's when his presence becomes personal. That's when your soul remembers what peace feels like. That's when healing begins in the quiet spaces where pretending finally ends. We live in a world that tells us to be strong, to keep pushing, to never let them see you cry. Somewhere along the way, we started confusing vulnerability with weakness. As if showing emotion somehow meant losing control. So we build walls, we toughen our tone, and we tell ourselves that if we just keep it together long enough, no one will ever know how close we are to breaking. But vulnerability is not weakness. It's courage in motion. It's the quiet bravery of letting your truth breathe in a world that only celebrates perfection. It's standing in the middle of your mess and saying, I'm not okay, but I'm still here. It's refusing to hide your heart just because it's been hurt before. It takes courage to be honest about what you're feeling. It takes strength to let people see the tears behind the smile. Anyone can pretend. Anyone can fake it, but it takes a different kind of power to say, I'm struggling and that's okay. Vulnerability doesn't mean you've lost faith. It means you've stopped pretending. It means you trust that even when you're breaking, something beautiful can still come out of your honesty. The world teaches us to build a brand of strength that looks unshakable, but real strength doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like getting up one more time. Sometimes it looks like forgiving when you're still bleeding. Sometimes it looks like admitting you're tired and asking for help. We think that if we hide our pain, it will disappear. We think that if we act strong, we'll eventually feel strong. But what really happens is that the pain festers in the silence. We lock our emotions in secret places, thinking we're protecting ourselves. But all we're doing is delaying our healing. Real courage is saying, this hurts, and allowing yourself to feel it. Real strength is letting people in, even when it scares you. It's being honest enough to say, I don't have it all together, and that's okay. Because pretending is heavy. It's exhausting to live behind a wall that was only built to keep people from seeing your pain. Vulnerability tears down that wall brick by brick. Until the light starts to come in again, there's a power in being seen, not the version of you that has it all figured out, but the version that's still learning, still healing, still growing. When you let people see your truth, you give them permission to be real too. You create connection where performance used to live. You create community where comparison once ruled. And isn't that what we all really crave? To be seen and loved. Not for the version of ourselves we present, but for who we really are. Vulnerability opens that door. It allows love to flow freely because love can't reach what you're hiding. You can't receive comfort if you keep pretending you don't need it. We've been told to be tough, to be independent, to never rely on anyone else. But strength doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean you have to carry everything on your own. There's bravery in saying, I need someone. There's freedom in letting others carry part of the weight you've been holding. Vulnerability is how we remember we're human. It's how we remind ourselves that we were never meant to do this life alone. When you finally let the walls come down. My people don't walk away. They lean in. They see your tears and recognize their own. They hear your story and realize they're not alone either. There's something sacred about those moments when you're completely undone, when the mask falls and there's no more pretending left to do. That's where grace meets you. That's where healing begins, because you can't heal what you hide. You can't release what you refuse to acknowledge. Vulnerability cracks the shell of your pain wide open so that light can finally touch the places you've kept buried. And that's where transformation happens, in the raw, unfiltered truth of your humanity. It's not weakness to cry. It's not weakness to admit you're afraid. It's not weakness to say you're tired. The world may call that soft, but heaven calls it strength. It takes guts to show your wounds. It takes faith to believe that your brokenness can still be beautiful. Vulnerability is not the opposite of strength. It's the proof of it. It means you're still willing to feel, still willing to try, still willing to show up even when life keeps knocking you down. It means you're refusing to harden your heart just because the world didn't handle it with care. And yes, vulnerability is risky. It opens the door to rejection, misunderstanding, disappointment, but it also opens the door to healing, connection, and peace. You might get hurt again, but you might also find people who will hold your pain gently. You might find spaces where your tears are welcome, where your truth is safe. The risk is real, but so is the reward. Because when you hide behind strength for too long, you forget what softness feels like. You forget what it means to be held. You forget that your heart was made to feel deeply, not just survive quietly. So many of us are walking around carrying silent battles because we're too afraid to admit we're not okay. We think no one will understand. That people will think less of us, that our honesty will cost us respect. But the truth is, your transparency doesn't make you less. It makes you real. It makes you relatable. It makes you whole. Vulnerability is how you reclaim your story. It's how you take back your power from shame and fear. It's how you remind yourself that you're still capable of love, still worthy of peace, still strong enough to keep going even when it hurts. It takes courage to open your heart when the world has given you reasons to close it. It takes strength to tell the truth when lies would be easier. It takes faith to be soft in a world that tells you to be hard. Vulnerability doesn't mean you're falling apart. It means you're brave enough to stop hiding. It means you're choosing authenticity over appearance. It means you're learning that being real is the greatest act of strength you'll ever show. There comes a time in life when you realize you've spent so much energy trying to impress people who were never really paying attention. You've poured out your heart, given your best, and still felt unseen. You've built yourself around the idea that if you just do enough, if you just smile brighter, work harder, show up stronger, maybe they'll finally notice. Maybe they'll finally understand. But no matter how hard you try, it feels like your efforts disappear into thin air. The truth is, you don't need to keep performing for a world that doesn't even know the weight of your battle. You don't have to keep explaining your pain to people who only listen long enough to judge it. The world claps for strength, but rarely stops to ask about the scars that strength came from. It celebrates the outcome, but ignores the process. People will see you standing tall and have no idea how many nights you cried yourself to sleep to make it through. They'll applaud your resilience while overlooking your breaking point. They'll call you strong. But then they'll never understand what it cost you to be that way. And still, we keep showing up for their approval, chasing validation from crowds that only cheer when it's convenient. We forget that not everyone is meant to see our struggle. Not everyone has earned the right to hear our story. We exhaust ourselves trying to be understood, explaining our choices, defending our boundaries, proving our worth to people who never even tried to understand our heart. But some people were never meant to understand you. They were meant to misjudge you so you'd stop depending on their validation. Sometimes the misunderstanding is divine protection, a way of pulling you away from the need to perform and into the freedom of just being yourself. When you stop chasing the world's approval, you make room for peace. You make room for authenticity. You make room for God to fill the space that was once occupied by people's opinions. There's a difference between being seen and being understood. The world might see your success, but it doesn't see the struggle behind it. It might see your smile, but not the storm you're standing in. It might see your wins, but not the wounds they came from. And that's okay. You don't have to explain every chapter of your healing to people who only showed up to read the summary. You don't have to make everyone understand your silence, your distance, or your growth. Not everyone will get it. And that's not your burden to carry. The constant need to prove yourself is a trap that drains your spirit. Every time you perform for people's approval, you hand them power over your peace. Every time you silence your truth just to keep someone comfortable, you betray the voice inside of you that's been begging to be heard. You don't owe explanations for choosing peace over chaos, boundaries over burnout, or healing over history. The people who are meant for you will never require you to shrink yourself just to make them stay. They'll see your scars and still call you whole. They'll understand your silence without needing a script. They'll value your honesty more than your performance. We live in a culture that rewards appearances. Everyone's posting their highlight reels while hiding their heartbreak. Everyone's pretending they're fine, chasing likes and validation from strangers who don't even know their real name. But behind the filters, people are crumbling under the pressure to look perfect. And if you're not careful, you start comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's show. You start thinking something's wrong with you because you're struggling while they're shining. But not everything that glitters online is gold in real life. You don't have to keep performing to belong. You don't have to keep pretending to be strong just to be accepted. It's okay to step back. It's okay to stop explaining your every move. It's okay to outgrow the spaces that only valued you when you were convenient. You don't have to prove that you're good enough for people who never took the time to see your heart. You don't have to keep auditioning for love that's conditional. The right people won't need a performance. They'll love you through your process. They'll see the real you and choose you anyway. You deserve to exist in spaces where you don't have to earn belonging. The truth is, not everyone will clap when you win, and not everyone will care when you lose. That realization used to sting, but now it's freeing. Because it means you can stop living for their applause. You can stop shrinking yourself to fit into rooms that were never meant to hold your purpose. You can stop chasing approval from people who don't even understand the calling on your life. When you stop performing, you give yourself permission to breathe. You start to recognize that peace feels better than popularity. You realize that you were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be authentic to yourself. The people who truly love you don't need the show. They just need your truth. They'll hold your hand when you're quiet, celebrate you when no one else does, and remind you that your worth doesn't depend on what the world says about you. They'll honor your growth even when it makes you different. They'll see the beauty in your becoming even when it's messy. The world might never understand your battle, but that's not their assignment. Your healing is sacred. Your growth is personal. You don't need to perform to prove you're strong. Your survival is proof enough. So stop wasting your strength trying to make people see you the way you see yourself. Some will only ever view you through the lens of their own limitation. Some will never understand your silence, your distance, or your healing. And that's okay. You don't have to explain peace to people who thrive in chaos. You don't have to justify joy to those who expected you to stay broken. You don't have to shrink your light to make others comfortable in their darkness. The world might misunderstand your journey, but your purpose will never depend on their understanding. There's a sacred power in truth, the kind of truth that doesn't always sound pretty, the kind that exposes the cracks we've tried to hide under layers of pretending. For so long, We've been taught to run from our truth. We've been told to keep it quiet, to smile through the storm, to be grateful even when our hearts are bleeding. But the truth has a way of waiting for us. No matter how far you run, it follows you, whispering in the silence, tugging at your spirit, reminding you that freedom doesn't live in the shadows of denial. Your truth is not your enemy. It's the doorway to your transformation. We spend so much of our lives trying to control the narrative, editing our stories so they sound more acceptable, hiding the parts that might make others uncomfortable. We want people to see us as strong, successful, unshaken. But transformation doesn't happen in the places where we're pretending to be perfect. It happens in the places where we're brave enough to be real. When you start speaking your truth, even trembling, even unsure, something inside you begins to shift. You stop surviving and start living. You stop chasing other people's approval and start standing in your own authenticity. Truth sets you free, not because it erases the pain, but because it releases the hold that pain has on you. The truth will always ask for your honesty before it gives you your healing. It will confront you in quiet moments, asking you to stop running from the parts of yourself that need attention. The truth doesn't always come with comfort. Sometimes it comes with confrontation. It exposes the lies you've believed, that you're not enough, that you're too broken, that you'll never be whole. It pulls back the curtain on the fears that have kept you playing small. And it's in that exposure that transformation begins, because you can't heal what you won't acknowledge. You can't change what you keep pretending doesn't exist. There's courage in facing your truth. It takes bravery to admit that you're not as okay as you seem, to look at your reflection and see both your strength and your struggle. But when you do, you reclaim your power from everything that's tried to define you. The truth gives you your identity back. It reminds you that you are not your mistakes, not your trauma, not your pain. You are the one who survived them. And that survival deserves to be honored, not hidden. When you finally face your truth, you stop carrying it as shame and start carrying it as wisdom. We live in a world that teaches us to move on quickly, to forget, to distract ourselves from the pain. But healing doesn't come from avoidance. Healing comes from truth. You can't fast forward through the process of becoming whole. You have to walk through it step by step, letting truth peel away the layers that life and fear have built. It's in the facing that the transformation happens. When you stop pretending everything is fine and start saying, "This hurt me." When you stop hiding your wounds and start letting the light reach them, every truth you face becomes a stepping stone toward freedom. And sometimes that truth is messy. Sometimes it looks like realizing you've been settling for less because you were afraid of being alone. Sometimes it looks like admitting that you've been angry at life or even at God for how things turned out. Sometimes it's looking in the mirror and acknowledging the person you've become doesn't feel like you anymore. But even that honesty is sacred, because truth is not about condemnation. It's about awakening. It's about finally seeing things as they are so you can stop living in the illusion of what they were supposed to be. When you tell your truth, you break generational silence. You break cycles of pretending that everything is fine when it's not. You become the first one in your story to say, "This ends with me." Your truth becomes the foundation for the next version of you. The healed, honest, whole version who doesn't hide behind survival. Because truth doesn't just expose pain. It also reveals strength. When you start owning your truth, you realize how much you've overcome, how much you've endured, how much you've grown even when you didn't feel like it. The truth will stretch you, but it will also strengthen you. It will make you uncomfortable because it will force you to release control. You'll have to admit things you'd rather ignore, forgive people you'd rather hate, love yourself in places you'd rather reject. But that's what transformation requires. A willingness to see it all, face it all, and still choose to grow through it. Transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. Beneath all the fear, beneath all the pretending, when you stop running from your truth, you start hearing your soul again. You start recognizing the quiet strength that's been buried under the noise. You start realizing that your truth isn't something to be ashamed of. It's your testimony. It's the story of how you made it through. And that story has power. Someone needs to hear it, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Every scar tells a story. Every truth carries a lesson. Every painful chapter has the potential to birth something beautiful. And when you begin to live in your truth, you stop being controlled by the opinions of others. You stop needing people to validate what you already know. You stop bending yourself to fit into versions that make other people comfortable. You start living from a place of freedom, not because everything is easy, but because you're no longer pretending. You can breathe again. You can feel again. You can be again. Your truth becomes your liberation, your guide, your foundation. It reminds you that every part of your story, even the broken ones, has purpose. And once you learn to embrace that truth, the transformation becomes unstoppable. There's something sacred about the moments when everything falls apart, when your strength runs out, and all you can do is whisper, I can't do this anymore. It's in those raw, unguarded spaces that grace quietly steps in. Grace doesn't wait for you to have it all together. It meets you right in the middle of the mess. It finds you in the moments when you're convinced you've gone too far, failed too much, fallen too low. It wraps itself around the fragments of who you are and says, even here, you are loved. Grace doesn't need perfection to show up. It thrives in broken places because that's where its power is most clearly seen. When life breaks you open, grace is the hand that gathers your pieces without judgment. It doesn't rush your healing or demand your strength. It simply meets you where you are. You don't have to pretend you're fine. You don't have to hide your tears. You don't have to act like your faith hasn't been shaken. Grace understands that sometimes surviving is holy work. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is keep breathing, keep showing up, even when your heart feels heavy. Grace sees that effort and calls it enough. There's beauty in the broken places because that's where grace begins to teach you how to rest. It's in the moments when your plans have failed, your prayers feel unanswered, and your strength is gone that you realize you were never meant to carry it all alone. You begin to see that the same God who held you in the sunshine is still holding you in the storm. Grace reminds you that you're not disqualified by your pain. You're being refined by it. The cracks in your heart aren't proof of your weakness. They're openings for the light to get in. Sometimes grace doesn't look like a miracle that changes everything in an instant. Sometimes it looks like quiet strength that helps you make it through another day. It looks like peace in the middle of chaos. It looks like forgiveness for yourself when you wish you had done things differently. It looks like finding beauty in a story that still feels unfinished. Grace doesn't erase the pain, but it gives you the power to rise from it. It teaches you that even the broken pieces of your life can still create something beautiful. We often think that being broken means being beyond repair, but grace tells a different story. It tells you that your brokenness is not the end. It's the beginning of something new. It's where the rebuilding starts. It's where your faith grows deeper, your compassion widens, your heart learns to see differently. Grace takes the pieces you thought were useless and builds something stronger out of them. It doesn't demand perfection. It celebrates progress. It doesn't shame your scars. It honors them as evidence that you survived. There's a tenderness in grace that doesn't always make sense. You could be standing in the ruins of what used to be your life, and somehow grace will whisper that it's still possible to hope again. You could feel unworthy, unloved, unseen, and grace will find a way to remind you that you've never been forgotten. It reaches into the lowest, darkest corners of your soul and calls you worthy. It reminds you that you are not the sum of your mistakes, not the total of your heartbreaks, not the weight of your past. You are still loved, still chosen, still covered. The beauty of grace is that it doesn't require you to perform. It doesn't wait for you to be fixed before it embraces you. It's there when you fail, when you doubt, when you fall apart. It's there when you can't pray, when you can't see a way forward, when your strength has run out. Grace doesn't say, come back when you're ready. It says, I'm already here. And that's what makes it so powerful. It's unconditional. It meets you right where pretending finally ends. So many of us spend our lives trying to be good enough for God, for people, for ourselves. We carry the weight of guilt, shame, and unspoken disappointments, thinking that if we just do better, maybe we'll finally deserve peace. But grace isn't something you earn. It's something you receive. You can't work for it. You can only accept it. It's not about being deserving. It's about being loved anyway. Grace doesn't keep score. It keeps showing up. It doesn't care how far you've fallen. It only cares about lifting you up. Sometimes grace shows up disguised as stillness. It's that quiet assurance that even when everything feels uncertain and you are still being held, it's that soft reminder that even when your heart is weary, you're not alone. Grace doesn't promise that the pain will vanish overnight, but it does promise that the pain will not be wasted. Every tear you've cried, every heartbreak you've endured, every prayer that seemed unanswered, grace gathers them all and turns them into something meaningful. It transforms what tried to break you into something that builds you. And maybe that's what makes grace so extraordinary. It's gentle but strong. It meets you where you are but never leaves you there. It doesn't demand that you hide your brokenness. It teaches you to see the beauty in it. It doesn't ask you to rush your healing. It walks with you through it. Grace doesn't remove the storm, but it anchors you through it. It takes your pain and plants seeds of purpose inside it. It takes your weakness and fills it with quiet strength. Grace turns your breaking into becoming. When you look back, you'll realize that it wasn't your strength that carried you through. It was grace. It was the invisible presence that held you together when everything was falling apart. It was the calm that found you in chaos. The light that found you in darkness, the love that found you in despair. Grace was there in every tear, in every prayer, in every moment you thought you couldn't go on. It was there, patient and constant, reminding you that even in the broken places, you are never beyond redemption.